with me is Amber Conville. Amber is a primary developer in our company and does a lot of tremendous work, and is also, because of our collaboration, a friend, I like to think.
It's true.
I'm Tim. I've been your Agile auditor for a long time. I've been in software since '79, in the Agile movements from the late '90s, before it was called Agile. Does that make me a hipster?
Maybe.
It might be too late to be a hipster now. So we're all at Industrial Logic, and today we will be joined at some point by Josh Kerievsky,
Yep.
who is our CEO and founder, the top guy, who has a lot of good opinions about software and who has just arrived on site. So our question today is, what do we mean by software? I'll give Josh a moment to introduce himself.
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry, I was just having some internet issues here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. This is a 5-part series. This is the second of 5 events we're doing live, and we're very excited about this because it's a chance to sort of explain a motto that I think is important for the software field in general, and it's certainly real near and dear to our hearts at Industrial Logic. It's better software sooner. Better software sooner. And last week we talked about better. What do we mean by better? Today we're talking about software, which you might think, that's odd. What do you mean? How can you talk about software for 30 minutes? And we're going to talk about all aspects of software that we believe make for excellent software. So that's our purpose today. I would just ask that you please don't be shy. Ask questions, raise points, make points, whatever. We'll get a few questions answered throughout the session. And without further ado, why don't we kick it off? So what does software mean to either of you? Amber or Tim? What is this? What's great software look like?
Well, to me, software is a means to an end, which sounds like maybe it's less important to me. I don't think that's true. What I think is that by being a means to an end, that means this is a thing that we need to do this other thing, to perform a task at work, to buy something, to listen to music, to watch a video. And the fact that it is such an integral part of almost every process or recreation activity or something like that as a means to an end means that it needs to be something that we trust. It needs to be something that works. It needs to be something that's easy to update or change. And so that's what software means to me.
I've there's definitions and then there's meanings. So definitionally, someone once told me that hardware is the part you can kick. So software, of course, is the heart and soul and mind of that thing that you can kick or drop. And then, since that's true, since that's the decision-making process, the thinking process, as it were, it can work well or it can work badly. I've certainly seen bad software. So when I think about software, I think about a certain set of qualities that are pretty important to me, that are about how it is soft. My engineer friends tell me if it was easy, we would have done it in hardware. So software is the place that the complexity comes to rest.
Love it. I was doodling around with this yesterday, just asking myself, what is it for me that makes for great software? And I came up with a little acronym. So sorry, there's so many acronyms in the software field. That's part of the software field, right? This is acronym soup. But this one is an acronym that I think will kind of accurately describe what I think makes for great software, and it's SALT. SALT. And the first word is soft, and Tim just mentioned that. Software needs to be soft. It needs to be easy to change, malleable. You can adapt it. It's like clay, right? Do what you want with it. It's meant to be soft. It's not meant to be rigid, and not meant for you to be afraid to change it. It's meant to be easily and safely changeable. So it needs to be soft. That's the S in SALT. The A is always shippable. That is, it's never broken completely where you can't ship it. where you're in the middle of integrating something. It's going to take several weeks or days to integrate and it's all broken. Can't do anything with it. No, the way we like to work is it's always shippable. You can always go to production with it. And the L in SALT stands for lovable, that the customers love it. And it helps the customers do their job or do whatever they're doing with it really well. In Modern Agile, we call it make people awesome, right? You're empowering the user with some awesome tool. Your software is helping to make people awesome, whether it's in a vehicle or on the web or in some other embedded system. Software is meant to be lovable, and not just by the users, but also by the people making the software, that they love it. They love the way it's organized. They love the infrastructure, the tests, everything about it. And the T is finally, the T in SALT is trustworthy, that you trust it. It's not fragile. It's not going to fall down. It's not going to give the wrong answers. It's safe and secure. You trust it to be there doing its job. It's resilient, right? It can even handle problems that occur out there. I mean, so that's a high bar, right? SALT. But
Not to get salty with you though, Josh, but I threw a Y in just to be a little salty, because I got to thinking, you know, if we keep evolving and keep changing it, then it kind of stays youthful. It never becomes that old thing so much. So I throw in a salty Y so our software can be as salty as our developers.
Love it. Youthful, I love that. Okay, well, that is great. Yeah, we do find that software ages and gets arthritis and gets back pains and things, right? The analogy being it you don't always upgrade every last bit of software, and over the years you'll have an old JavaScript library, or you'll have something that's a little out of date and maybe causing problems. So I think youthful is a very nice addition. It's meant to, yeah, right. We need to address those things, and that's sometimes the work of paying down technical debt. Other metaphors apply, but you know, that's a tough balance for a lot of companies, is feature, 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 or do I pay down some technical debt, and how do I get that balance right? So what is your, you know, let's say your favorite software ever that you felt was salty?
You know, the first thing that comes to mind, honestly, is 1Password. It's always there when I need it. I know it's going to keep my up-to-date passwords in it. I can use it on all my devices. You know, even if my network goes down, I trust it.
Great endorsement. Yeah.
I always keep thinking about software I worked on instead of software that I use. But I will say that there's some of the social media apps, of all things. I know that, you know, people can feel however they do about them, but you know, when I pick up my phone, I have contact with people. It's encrypted through WhatsApp, and I find value in that and the ability to reach out to people. But ultimately, my very favorite software ever has been the Google Maps. And it's because of the trusted and loved thing mostly. It is, by the way, ever young. They keep updating the data and growing it. But I have a dysfunction. And for me to memorize instructions and memorize places and maps is very, very difficult. And I actually lived a very sheltered existence. I would be locked in the hotel to the work site when I was out working. And until I had something like Google Maps, I couldn't go out and go exploring. And if you know me, you know that I love sightseeing and exploring and finding restaurants. And knowing that I could always come back has enhanced my life. It's something I love. It's something I trust. I know that it's up to date. I know that it has new versions all the time, and I don't even see when they land. It just always stays up.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I would just simply say ditto, because I mean, in traveling the world, you know, downloading maps and stuff like that, where you can, if you're offline, you still have it on your phone. It can still help you. If you want walking directions, you can get them. I mean, it's been phenomenal. So that's a great example. What about in terms of code you've worked on?
So I've been working in a particular code base for the last 6 months pretty heavily, and I kind of love it. It's our e-learning platform, Greatest Hits, and I think what I love about it is that it has a lot of these these attributes. We had to do some pretty major migrations. This code base has been around for 20 plus years. And the fact that we have so much of a safety net around it in the form of automated tests, in the form of me knowing how to do stuff in there because it's been built in a way that's what am I trying to say? Easy to remember, I guess, has really been joyful to work. Because when I migrate something, when I upgrade something now, I can run the test. I can see if it worked or not. I can trust those. And then I can get excited that I made this migration, that I made this update, and feel confident that it's going to work and, deploy it.
It's awesome.
By the way, if anyone here has access to the e-learning, maybe we have some of our past learners following us and playing along with our conversation. Take another look. Your account is probably still good. You're probably still alive because we give lifetime licenses. It's different now. The look and feel is different. The convenience of using it is so different. And the content keeps changing. We have content changes all the time. We just added a whole bunch of work to our Python albums. So if you're interested, you can either go revisit or come there for the first time. Come buy an album, see what they look like.
Yeah, I would also probably echo what Amber said, because that's one of the major pieces of software of my life is we spent so many years building that software. It's got a system metaphor from XP. If you ever heard of that practice, it's not well known anymore, but there's a metaphor that guides. There's.
Oh, I think we lost him.
Wow. Did you lose me?
Yeah, you're back.
I hear you now. Yeah.
Give that another run.
Okay. Sorry about that. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but yeah, I would just echo what you were saying about our e-learning software itself. We built it from scratch over many years. We evolved it. It was running in its first, month. We had it up and running, using it in classrooms, and we evolved it. So it's followed a lot of our principles of evolutionary design, test-driven development, continuous integration, continuous deployment. It's the first place I started doing continuous deployment back around 2010. You'd make a change, it would commit it, it would get built, it would run all the tests, and then go live. And we've experienced a lot in that code base, and it's wonderful to see Amber upgrading it lately. Replacing old JavaScript libraries and slowly migrating us away from certain older platforms we were on, even old systems we were on that ran in different, moving to AWS was a big step for us, right? How do we approach that? So yeah, so this concept of salty and of just great software, a lot of companies don't seem to feel like they're capable of it. Like how do you approach the companies that either they're just happy with the way things are, the status quo, well, there's a bunch of defects, we got to fix the defects, and there's a very slow pipeline to production, it takes us months to get live. Like that doesn't have to be the way it is, does it?
Yeah, and I think one indicator of that, if a company feels like it's all fine and they should just continue on how it is developer turnover. Honestly, if it's not a joy to work on, why would someone want to keep working on it?
I suppose if they feel like that's all right, they can afford the way it is, then I guess that's a choice. But I imagine for any one company that thinks that this is great, there's probably a dozen that are saying, no, this sucks, but that's just how it is. And I think it's important for them to hear that doesn't have to be.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be that way. Ours, I was looking one day and I noticed that it was pretty typical for the period I was watching that 6 or 8 deployments per day for quite a while was pretty normal. And people are saying, well, you can't do that. It takes 4 or 5 days to write a feature. Well, that's a choice. The fact is we can learn how to slice things. And I think that I never really understood how to slice work for deployment until I started working with Joshua.
That's a really good qualifier. I don't think that's said in that format enough.
Yeah, everybody divides it up to assign it, but how many people know how to slice for delivery?
Yeah.
You can't be always ready. You can't always be shippable if you have some big things half written and you've never run the code, you've never compiled it, you've never tested it.
Yeah.
And, and it's going to be days before you finish the thing. But if you can get small and clean, it's a
Yeah.
whole different game.
So I see a comment over here. It's fear, what's known as comfortable, which makes absolutely perfect sense. It, lines right up with human nature. Absolutely, 100%. So what kinds of things do you think we could do to lessen that fear or make it feel safer to start baby stepping towards more continuous deployment, more salty software?
I mean, I think that fear is fear of change, fear of making a mistake. In a lot of these blame cultures where, you could be fired for making a little mistake, um, or at least penalized or something, right? It is a major stumbling block to getting to salty software. It's You've got to take some chances. I mean, sometimes even we have bugs that show up as we're upgrading something. It does happen. We fix them and move on, and it's all in the spirit of making the thing useful, making it better. You're going to bump into some walls sometimes, but your customers ultimately really appreciate it when you're doing this type of work. Your customers kind of notice it when the thing just stays the same and it barely improves and they start losing confidence in it. I don't think enough of us spend enough time with our customers. We ourselves are working harder to interview customers more, to spend time with customers and understand, how's this software working for you, right? It's a really interesting process to do that. And I think if you're just floating along afraid of making changes, you probably have some dissatisfied customers. They're not loving it, and the L in salty. And maybe you need to focus in on what would make them love this software better. What are the things you need to do to get there? Sometimes it's, hey, the software is not stable. We worked with one customer once where stability was the killer feature. They had all this list of actual new features to add, and we went in there and it was crystal clear that this thing would basically break all the time. There was a competitor that put an advertisement out that said, "Don't tolerate software crashes." And they were subtly pointing to this company, which was the leader in the industry, but their software crashed.
Yeah.
So the only thing we did for 6 months was to actually make that software rock solid. We had a very, very clear North Star, which was it had to run for 48 hours, acquiring data from this hardware device, which they also made, in terms of being clear, can this thing not fall on its face? And once we shipped it, the customers were thrilled, delighted, sent letters, thank you, this is the most stable version of this product you've shipped in years. I can't begin to thank you so much. And that's just back to trustworthy, right? It had to be trustworthy, not break. And we had to get our focus right on making it more lovable. So there's always room for improvement, especially even with us. Every one of us can keep, if we have that youthful word back to Tim, we can continue to make our software better and better.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that is, Josh, what's that, like eight or 10 years ago, you wrote the technical safety blog post for our Industrial Logic blog. And you started talking about, it's just unsafe for a lot of people. They don't have practices. They don't have safeties. And a safety is anything that keeps a mistake from becoming a crisis. And so Amber's talking about how well covered we are with tests. We know that using version control differently is a huge savings. Micro commits, being able to come back to the last time everything was okay. I think Ron Jeffries said we don't use get reset hard often enough. Maybe we should use it a couple times a day so that we show that we're experimenting, we're trying something, right? But it's not safe for most people because they don't commit until they've got hundreds of lines of code written, and then it all looks okay, and then they've debugged it and they've almost got it working. If they were to revert, they would lose days of work. And the way we work, you'd lose minutes.
Yeah.
And they weren't productive minutes anyway in that case. So learning to test and to use version control differently and to interact differently, there are safeties for us. It can be safe to make it reliable.
And you mentioned the word small, right? Because you're talking about like small commits. I mean, we talk about small user stories, and we talk about, small deployments, and everything gets a lot smaller and cleaner, like you said. It's really funny because literally my coach in tennis literally wants me to get smaller and cleaner in my tennis game. And though he uses those exact same words, like
Wow.
smaller strokes, cleaner strokes where it's hitting the middle of the racket, and small and clean. What do we think about that in terms of this software?
That's exactly the phrasing we've been using in our boot camp. We keep telling people to work smaller, work cleaner, work smaller, work cleaner, get a completely clean start, work smaller. So that's it's a good message. I didn't realize that was also from your tennis coach.
Yeah.
Well, I think it probably applies to a lot of things. It's clean is just doing things without a lot of dirt and muck, and it's an art to learn how to work that way, though, right? We didn't start out this way. None of us did,
Mhm.
right? I none of us. I mean, I remember, writing giant switch statements at a bank, case statements that would handle all kinds of situations. I didn't know about polymorphism back then, and um, there's a journey here, isn't there? Can you say more about that, right? What is the journey to get to become able to make salty software?
Well, I think it might help a little bit if we could talk about it more concretely. So what would it mean in a concrete sense to have a small, clean unit of work, something to commit, something that might be a little bit safe and less scary?
Well, can you give us an example, Amber? Something you did recently on the e-learning.
Sure. Yep. So one of the things we recently updated, and if you're a user of e-learning, is the look and feel of the dashboard. The it used to be called home, so the home page of e-learning. And there's a lot going on there. And the way that we wanted to change it required a little bit of re-architecting of a few different things. So instead of just wholesale ripping out what was there and spending a week or two, rewriting it all from scratch, we can do something like a parallel change set. I know that I need this different resource from the server. Yes, it's going to essentially be the same information as what we're getting now, but I need it to be a little bit different. I can iterate that on a very small scale with tests and deploy that, and it's not affecting anything. It makes it smaller and safer and cleaner as you're developing, as well as when you're ready to move over to the new implementation.
Great example. And that would be for any little new UI element or any element in that old dashboard or homepage that needs to change to something else, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's small and safe. And we don't even talk about it here, because it's not like there's a product owner saying, okay, Amber, you're going to work on this tiny little fence. She already knows what to do. We're pretty advanced in that regard. It's like you don't even need the planning meeting. It's just we all embrace this sort of evolutionary style of development where everything's going to work in small pieces safely. You test a lot and cut over when you're ready. That is the style, and we certainly help customers learn this too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was at a customer site and I was working with a developer, and they took up some work and they just started working on it, in their development environment, and they thought it was looking pretty good. So then they fired up this fancy tool and they were picking out which paragraphs from which files they want to include in their commit. And I was like, why don't you just commit everything? Oh, I can't. I've got 5 or 6 stories going here. It's like, oh, so they're picking out all these little pieces and trying to make sure they got all of them and nothing unnecessary. And they made a commit and it failed in their build and test server because that configuration of code has never existed on its own.
Yeah.
And he accidentally was relying on other things. And what we tend to do is start off either with a fresh clone or get status. There should be nothing there that isn't exactly the same as on the main line before we start. So we're clean to begin with, and we run the tests, because I've also seen people lose time because they started working on their code and something didn't work and they thought they had messed it up, but actually they had downloaded bad code and they'd never run the tests and they didn't realize it was someone else's error that had been committed. So again, they're corrupted and they spent hours trying to fix it before they found out it wasn't even theirs. Working clean from a clean start, knowing that you're exactly the same as the main branch and the main branch is okay, and then making these little commits and just commit everything because you've only worked on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at how much that speeds us up and how it simplifies the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Git too, it's so easy. I mean, I've fallen victim to just I'm working on implementing something. Someone says, hey, this thing's not working right. I go look at it. Oh, it's not. I wonder why that is. And I start tweaking stuff. And now I'm like, oh man, now I got a messy workspace. I try to make it a point when I feel myself do a focus shift, stash. Stash immediately.
Well, we've got about 5 minutes left. If anyone has any other questions or comments, please add them here. We can start to maybe sum up a little bit of our thoughts about software, about what makes it great, what makes it potentially salty, and what it could look like for the future. I mean, our future is looking like AI is going to generate a lot of software, right?
I'll believe it when I see it. I think AI is going to be enormously useful. I don't think it can re-architect a GH front end.
I would be more than happy though if it could look at our code and do impact analysis while we're making changes.
Absolutely.
That would be so huge.
Yeah.
If we were enhanced instead of replaced, think how much further we could go.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's going to help us. I mean, I there's no doubt it ask it questions, it can generate things, and you can use some of those things or not use them. It's the decision making that's so important, right? Knowing what is useful from AI and what isn't. That's going to take some expertise to know what's useful and what isn't. It's criticize AI. I feel like, oh well, they're out of it. They don't understand it. But I'm talking about the fact that it's not going to be able to replace someone's ability to do evolutionary design anytime soon. I don't believe. Evolutionary design is a weird thing. If I ask you to make me a blackjack game, and you start out making like images which have no value, they don't represent cards, but the images allow me to play blackjack. These are images I'm playing with, not cards. AI would have no concept of doing that. It would not know to ever think of doing that solution. It's too creative. It's those types of things where I think the human brain is still going to be far superior to AI for quite some time. Maybe not forever, but how you approach problems, how you get something up and running quickly, that's a bit different. And generating code, there's a lot of bad code out there, and if AI is training on bad code, it can produce bad code. So we need to understand how to help it learn to create good code, salty code.
And we've learned, and I think we're pretty solid on this, that programming is 11/12 thinking and 1/12 code generation. And if AI can generate the code and do 1/12 of my job a little easier, I'm okay with that. But still, the creative human problem solving side of things, and to be able to recognize that it fits with the way the users need to work and what they want to do, that's not going anywhere. We need to focus on our creative, intuitive problem solving skills and not stress too much about code generation. If programming was typing, you'd hire typists to do it.
Yep.
Right. And understanding what the users need is another one that's, again, very human thing. Really getting deep into their needs and understanding their needs. That's not something I see AI being able to do too well.
I agree. I think once we start seeing people make these AI bots that don't magically turn hateful and racist, that's when I'll maybe start considering it.
Yeah, that's a problem too. Well, there's a lot there's good and there's a lot of bad in AI. So it's but oops, shoot, did I lose you?
Nope, you're still with me.
All right, great. I saw some
Still good.
screens go black. Yeah, anyone want to do a final summary of what their stance is on this? And we got about 1 minute left.
Well, my 1 minute would be, hey, let's keep it clean. Let's keep it soft and always shippable. Really always shippable, lovely and loved, beloved, trusted. Let's keep it youthful. Salty is a simple acronym, but it carries a lot of weight in this conversation.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, so hopefully you got inspired by this new acronym, and maybe you can ask some questions following up with us if you have some. This is not easily done, right? It takes real effort to get to this, but learning these techniques of keeping things small, really small, probably smaller than you think, and keeping things clean from the start, as Tim was saying, start clean. Don't even start with a dirty workplace or a dirty code base that's broken. Always start from a clean place because it's going to save you time. And I just want to remind folks, software is expensive. It is very expensive to create software. So these skills we learn to work small, safe, and quick are really critical to the finances behind it all. So,
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks everyone who attended. We really appreciate it. Next week, we're going to be talking about the word sooner. So our motto, again, better software sooner. We're going to talk about what does that mean, right? We've touched on a little bit here, right? Getting things into production sooner by slicing them small, working in parallel ways, and all sorts of, concepts around small and clean. It all applies to sooner as well. So we're going to dive into that word sooner. And after that, we'll be getting into a few case studies that exemplify better software sooner. So thanks for coming today. Thank you, Amber and Tim.
Yeah. Thanks.
See you all next week.